Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. It is 4 o'clock, and this is the regular board meeting of the Jefferson Public Utility District. My name is Jeff Randall. I am president of the board, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Jefferson PUD will be offering both virtual online meetings as well as in-person meetings unless advance notice is provided. Online participant audio will be muted upon entry. Please unmute at the appropriate time to speak, and if you're calling in, use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise a hand to request to speak. So let's start with a roll call. My name is Jeff Randall. I am president of the board and commissioner for District 1.
Dan Tupper, Commissioner for District 2. I know Ken might be muted.
Yeah, you might need to unmute there, Ken.
Did I say 2 or 3?
Try it again.
Dan Tupper, Commissioner 3.
And we have Ken Collins, Commissioner for District 2 online, but we can't hear your audio, Ken. Will, do you know what's going on there?
He's muted and he's got an earbuds in. I'm not sure.
Huh. Yeah, our screen, Ken, shows you as muted on your end.
I was looking at Ken and then District 2 came out of me as District 3.
All right. Well, Ken is present. We'll see if we can get that resolved and we'll keep on moving. Agenda review. So, Kevin, you had indicated an additional item to add to the agenda?
Yes, we got a ICG resolution, no action to be taken, but I'd like to, if a quick discussion, it won't take just but a couple minutes.
Okay. So can we put that under new business?
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, why don't we put that before the memberships and councils, and those will both should be pretty fast. So any other changes to the agenda? Okay.
No.
With that, Dan, you want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Okay, I will second the motion. All in favor of approving the agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And Ken, if you want, you can stick a thumb up or something, which indicates we have a unanimous vote on the agenda. Okay. So public comment. The public comment period allows members of the public to comment limited to 3 minutes each on any items not specifically listed on the agenda or for items listed on the consent agenda. Prior to any public comment, members of the public must first be recognized by the president or the designated chair of the meeting and are not permitted to disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct and fair progress of the commission's meetings. After an initial warning by the president or the designated chair of the meeting, individuals who intentionally violate these guidelines through actual disruption of the commission meeting will be dropped from the meeting. We have nobody in the room other than staff and Dan and I. I see a hand up by Philip. Hi, Philip. You want to go first?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
On, man.
Hey, so I've got a winter weather question to that's coming up in our neighborhood since we have 30 new all-electric homes in Trailcrest. I'm wondering if there's a way we can be warned if the Hastings substation transformer load is approaching a limit that we should start doing some voluntary load reductions on things like car charging, using our clothes dryers, and heating our spas, and whatever else might be going on out here that we could time shift or whatever. And I'm just curious about how that communication might be able to be passed on through me or some other mechanism that on the website, so we could take proactive action to avoid an overload situation that might cause a power outage.
Okay. Did you have anything else to contribute, or is that it?
That's it.
Okay. So what I heard you say, and I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in. It's like we have these notifications that go out, and I'm trying to remember what we use, because it's like there's a bridge out, or crews are out. There's different ways we have it on the website with outages, but we also have sent out messages, and I can't remember if it's Facebook. How are we doing that? Will, how are we sending out messages?
Oh, so many different ways.
So there's lots of ways we could do it. So I guess my question is, I think it's a really cool idea, and if we could put it in terms that made sense to folks. Hey, people in this blah blah neighborhood, we're having issues with this. Any voluntary reductions in electric power consumption right now could help us. I don't know.
And Will sounds like Phil wants to be a block captain. So
yeah. So what could we creatively do?
It's a little bit hesitant here because usually what happens, the real problem is more of a cold load pickup.
Mm-hmm.
This time of year, it is not based, we won't get cold enough where we're gonna peak like we did a couple years ago. So a lot of the times when we really need the help is when there's outages and we're trying to bring customers back on.
Mhm.
That's probably the key. We do have mechanisms that we can send those things out.
Okay.
Not only is it through us, but we were at a meetings today where the city and the county
You
and
say, is
everyone works
Nixle, is a
together.
way we can tie in with Nixle?
Nixle. Do you want to give them a recap of what happened today, Will?
Sure, yeah. Jeff, our safety manager, Jeff Dodd, had organized a meeting with all the other county agencies, talk emergency services, roads, fire, police, county, city, port. And so we discussed all the different ways that we share information with the public, and the EOC talked about their Nixle alert. And we did just use that during that outage a couple years ago, during the cold load pickup issues, asking people to try to reduce their usage at that time so we can help people get restored. So we have used that message. We will use it again. It is hard for us to be prescriptive about certain practices people have, but when we're having trouble getting power back on, we do send out a conservation message.
Okay. And I know like last time when we had that cold snap happen, I don't know that people, had a lot of lead time to know it was going to happen. So even though we can feel like, okay, we're not anticipating something now, I think when it comes up, it's something interesting to play with, and I feel like people are smarter than you give them credit for if you can help, explain it in simple terms, not scare anybody, but just kind of put it out there. And then, yeah, somebody might turn off some heat in some rooms or whatever. Anyway.
And
I think
that's
it's cool.
really the main thing is it's usually a lot of space heaters on at
Right.
the same time. So the main thing is wait for the power to come back on before you turn on your space heater.
Right. Okay.
Can Don pull his hand down or?
All right. So do we have any other public comments or staff comments on this issue? Going once, going twice. Looks like Ken got his volume figured out. All right. So
I
we're
had to switch computers.
well, yeah, hardware change. Good for you.
Mm.
Okay. So
Two Kens.
Ken
A
one.
doppelganger.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is bizarre.
Uh-oh.
Twin on our screen.
I'm beside myself.
Not quite, but close.
You actually have Joel and Philip and staff flanked on both sides. You got them surrounded.
Bracketed.
Okay. We've done public comments, so manager and staff reports.
So manager report, Will has a question on our newsletter.
The county has asked to run a survey about the pool initiative that they're taking part in right now. They would like to put it in our not the survey itself, but a link to the survey in the January bill. And in the past, they've always paid for the cost of the insert. We've primarily limited it to recycling, very like medication disposal, public safety and services issues. So this is a little outside of the normal parameters, and that's why I wanted to bring it to the commission to see their comfort level and if they wanted to have us lend this platform to the
Mhm.
county.
Is it aimed at a political position or a political outcome? What exactly is it that they want to put in there? Because I hate to set a precedent to pretty soon then everybody wants to use it as the platform. I'm not saying we shouldn't use it as a platform for important things, specifically utility, oriented. So I'm just curious as the context.
Well, it sounds like I think they've got a report of some sort from their task force, and it sounds like they're doing a survey of what people think of the report.
Yeah, they have a survey. I could bring it up real quick if you'd like to take
Sure.
a look at it. Yeah,
Sure.
that we could do that.
So
I-
it's something that exists, it's out there, and this would just be letting people know about it and providing a link.
Correct. And,
Okay.
and Commissioner Brotherton had alerted me to this a week or so ago, and then I just got the email before the meeting
And for
started.
Joel, I mean, again, if this is not politically related, right, that's kind of the first threshold for me. Is this something that we're setting a precedent that, we would have to start entertaining everybody that add this kind of a request? If it's not political? Anything you have on this?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
if it's not political, then you know, well, it doesn't, that really isn't the threshold. It's just you know, you have to treat everyone equally for the platform. So, you know, this is a co-branch of government, you know, seeking information, but you know, to be honest, I have to take a closer look at that issue to see if there's actually a First Amendment issue.
Yeah, so
And-
they're asking, where do you live? What's your age? How many people in your household? Is a new aquatic center in East Jefferson County important? Please
What-
identify.
Yeah, as
And
a partisan organ-
I'm sorry, can I just ask one question about it? So the proposal is that this just would appear in the newsletter.
Right.
a link.
No, no,
A
no.
link.
It would be it would be a link to the survey, be a QR code, the actual. survey.
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing the survey. We're not seeking that information from anybody. So I don't see a problem with that, but from my perspective.
It sounds like they're providing us the survey questions, but this is not actually going to go out in the.
And
Yep.
we're not endorsing this one way or the other.
No, and I want to maintain our neutrality as a nonpartisan
Right.
organization. So where I'm
Yeah.
going with this is I just don't want people getting the wrong idea, and then as commissioners, us getting a call of you're taking a political position or you're doing this and that. I don't want to get us going down, you know, that avenue.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
if it's just a link, a topic and a link, then maybe
Yeah.
we're okay. That's
I
why I
mean,
asked Joel.
It's a community, it's an issue of community infrastructure and community funding, and it's just informational. I don't have a problem with it. Ken, do you have an issue with it?
Light.
Okay.
And that has to do with the relevance to the business that we're in. But I can live with it being just a link, but I have some concern about it being precedent setting. And it feels a little bit outside the box for me.
And they're going to pay for it? Yes.
Yeah,
well,
they
it's
pay for all of
anything.
their inserts.
Yeah.
Well, in that case,
Yeah, and again, that brings me back around to Joel, because we are going to take a payment on this now. Is that opening it up to where we have to offer that to anybody and everybody that wants us to put a link on there? This is, it doesn't seem like a big thing until it becomes a big thing because you've set a precedent. So that's my only concern.
yeah, I mean, it's hard to know the impact down the road from allowing it. I think we're okay by providing this link without making comment on it. But I guess if it does get out of hand, then it probably makes sense to have some content neutral policy in place to help guide decisions as things develop.
Well, it seems like a survey is fairly content neutral.
Yeah, the recommendation that I would offer would be that we only offer newsletter space to our other government
Governmental.
partners. Yeah,
Again, and
that
can
way we don't get
can-
hit up by every.
do we have the autonomy to do that? That's the question. Or does it have to extend beyond governmental entities? That, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just trying to think ahead.
Yeah, I think that's your purview to set those limitations, but I would recommend just governmental agencies. And we have offered space to the library in the past, county.
They're a special districts.
Yep.
They're governmental.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So hearing no objections, it sounds like you're okay to proceed.
Mine's contingent on if a legal counsel wants to weigh in at any further point before we do it. I mean, if we're going to go ahead and do it, that's fine. I just want to make sure our legal counsel is good, that we're not getting ourselves into any jams.
Yeah, I will I'll take a closer look at it in the next day or so.
Okay. Manager and staff reports, please continue.
Okay, one last report, and this is a report on myself. I am going to retire. I'm going to retire. My goal is June 8th. I want to thank the board. First off, I enjoy my job. I like working here. We have good people, but it is time for me to move on. So appreciate everybody at the PUD. We have really good staff. It's been a great place to work. Again, I'm very appreciative. It's been very good for my family. So with that, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kevin, and we can make the first half of 2025 the Kevin Street goodbye tour. Appreciate you for everything that you do for us, and you were the electric PUD's first employee, so employee number one. All right.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yep. Okay. Any more staff report, or is that it?
That's it, the staff report.
Okay. Can I ask a question? Well, maybe we'll let Dan go first, and when you get to knowing it, I can ask staff a question about that. So you want to give your report first?
Sure, I'll
Dan?
go first here. So I attended the Public Power Council annual meeting on November 6th and 7th. On the 6th, PPC contract lobbyist Samantha McDonald gave an update on the changes that'll take place in Washington, D.C. following the 2024 election cycle. Scott Corwin of the American Public Power Association, who is also operating out of Washington, D.C., also gave his perspective on the dynamics and the changes in D.C. leadership and what those will have on public power. Both speakers were guarded, though. They believe that outcomes in D.C. will prove more favorable to public power than what we've seen over the past 4 years. So again, that was a guarded opinion. I think everybody's still kind of not sure where we're going to be going for sure here. So on the 7th of November, the PPC annual meeting, keynote speaker was John Robb, who is the president of the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, NERC. He spoke about power supply, transmission, AI and data center load impacts, reliability concerns, and the current trajectory of solar, wind, and battery storage to be able to meet need. He is of the opinion that renewables will not be able to keep pace with the demands of the grid and the legislation that we've seen coming down in states and at the national level. BPA Administrator John Hairston spoke about BPA accomplishments in 2024 and the outcome or the outlook, for 2025 for BPA. He thanked PPC and Public Power in general for their partnership and support with many challenges experienced by BPA in 2024. The 2025 PPC budget was accepted. And then I attended the NOAANET meeting on November 13th in Spokane. Moss Adams presented the result of the financial audit that they had executed for the 2023 NOAANET financials. There were no findings, and this audit closes out the pension liability timeline or transition that NOAANET initiated by going to PERMs. The state auditor is currently in the process of the compliance accountability audit and accepted the Moss Adams financial audit as being okay for the state purposes. The 2025 NOAANET budget was adopted right around 50 million. Average days of liquidity for the years is projected at 79 days of liquidity. That's all-time highs for them. It's been on an upward trajectory for the better part of the year. And the board approved a $1.2 million bond draw in 2025 to upgrade equipment, and that will be as needed. It won't be all up front. They'll take it as they need it through the course of the budget cycle next year. The board also approved a resolution to allow the CEO to declare an emergency to expedite NOAANET response for customers in a network in case of emergency. And that's the same thing we have in place for our general manager. So it kind of cuts the timelines on being able to get things accomplished without having to call special meetings. But the board will be in the loop, and the board members also will be able to, whenever the next scheduled meeting is, be able to question or end the emergency, I would imagine is the way it read, if I remember correctly. Thanks to General Manager Street and Communications Director Will O'Donnell for a very comprehensive member report on our behalf. Will did a great job of showing the components of building and supplying service in the retail space. And that's the end of the NOAANET portion. So is there something in particular that you wanted?
I was just going to ask, so Will and Kevin gave a presentation on our broadband efforts and business plan. Was there any discussion that occurred on the side that you'd want to share on that,
They were speechless.
or after the meeting, if anybody?
I'm going to say after the meeting, Very positive comments came back to me.
Okay.
Very positive.
Yeah, I didn't, no one came to me with anything, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Nope, no worries. Let's see. I attended the majority of the Waputa committee meetings on November 14th. I attended the Waputa Board of Directors meeting on November 15th. Executive Director Liz Anderson gave a report on some water damage sustained within the Waputa building. Liz has done a great job of attacking the issue and at resolving the problems. The Waputa State Legislative Priorities List was adopted. Both you gentlemen, I think, were on for most of the meeting, if I recall. And the budget was approved. It's right around 3 million for 2025. Staffing is at the same levels it's always been at. There were some dues increases. I think I already reported last time around that ours was, I think, about $5,000. Some people saw some really huge increases, and there was some discussion about that. I'll attend the NOAANET Strategic Workshop via Zoom on November 20th. I'll be at the ICG meeting on the 21st. I'll meet with Kevin on November 22nd, and I will attend our BOC special meeting on November 25th.
Okay. Ken, you want to go?
Yes. So on the 6th, I attended the executive committee meeting for perms. There had been, Dick Roderick reported on significant progress in terms of organizing a pool to defray the cost, to create a mechanism really where there is a level of coverage for utilities in the event of a wildfire. And Dick had stated that Aegis, which is also a collective entity, not too dissimilar from PERMS, which is an insurer, that they look favorably on the creation of a pool that would have $1 million to put towards the damage initially from a wildfire, and then there would be 2 levels of insurance on top of that, Aegis and EIM. One necessary concession that Dick made, because he's talking to Snohomish, he's talking to much larger PUDs, and PERMS as a member of the pool would have 1 vote, not 25 votes. So that would not have flown politically. Dick mentioned that there is a proposal. It's actually model legislation created by Avista that's available on the PERMS website. They don't see that going anywhere, but at least it's in writing. One of the other things Dick mentioned is that there's, looking at the health and welfare side, there's significant increase in the use of telemed, which saves some costs. There will be renewals of coverage January 1st. And let's see. Interestingly enough, the cost of cyber coverage has stabilized. The biggest issue, obviously, is wildfire coverage. And as I stated, there are discussions going on. I then attended the following day the regular PERMS Board of Directors meeting. There was a report on the changes in the legislature by Dave Arbaugh. And Jefferson PUD is somewhat lower in health and welfare costs than the average. 100 individuals seem to account for 57% of claims in health and welfare. The last item on the agenda in the PERMS meeting was election of officers, and for reasons undiscernible to me, I was reelected president of the board. On the 8th, I met with the general manager, attended Waputa kind of sporadically the 13th and 14th, had another meeting with the general manager on the 15th, phone conversation yesterday with Don McDaniel. I plan on attending in person the ICG meeting on the 21st, mainly because it's difficult remotely to hear everything that people say. So if I want to be part of that conversation, I'm going to have to be there. Have a meeting scheduled on the 22nd with the general manager. Looking forward to attending the Board of Commissioners special meeting on the 25th. And Kevin, you and I will have to discuss whether we want to meet before or after Thanksgiving, or even during. On the 5th of December, I'll take part in the EDC board meeting, and then have a meeting on the 6th with the general manager again. And that's my report.
So Ken, just for some perspective, and maybe you don't have the number, you said 100 people, basically, or 50% of the claims. How big is that pool overall? Do you know that number? Is it like 10,000 people that are in perms, or?
Well, you've got
Because it's stated
17 or 18 PUDs. Yeah, I would say roughly that's a fair estimate, considering individuals and family members.
Yeah. Again, it's kind of amazing to me that it'd be 100 claimants cause 50% of the use of that funds. That's craziness.
Well, I guess
Well, actually, it's not surprising. You know, we probed that with Dick, and people have cancer.
yeah.
People have a small number of people have very high ticket items.
I mean, I guess in some ways it's good that you have a few people who are sustaining these really bad, expensive health outcomes, and most people are not. And that's the whole concept of insurance. So,
Exactly.
is that your end of your report, Ken?
Yes, it is.
So my report, let's see, I listened to the NOAANET presentation, and Kevin and Will, great job. And thank you for being there to share our story. That was awesome. Listened in on, on Waputa on Zoom. And I guess for me, the biggest issue I heard was talked about at the Energy Committee. And of course, they're just looking ahead at legislation next year. And in our last meeting, we talked about the CETA mandate of the low income current state law. And did both of you listen in on the Energy Committee meeting and hear that discussion on the possible legislation next year on low
I
income?
missed the first or some of the meeting.
Right.
I missed part of that discussion.
So Liz Anderson sent out an email today, and I'll just summarize it real quick.
Mhm.
So there was actually a motion passed by the Energy Committee, and it's not that often that we pass motions, but it said, if a statewide low-income assistance program is brought forward to the state legislature that relies on anything other than sustainable state funds, then Waputa will bring forward its alternative low-income assistance proposal. So there has been discussion about more of a, rather than each utility having to take care of its own low-income people and comply with the state mandate, to somehow create a statewide pool of funding. What's being talked about is something that would rely on state general funds. So then the question of, well, at any time they could make that go away and then turn it back on us. So that's why they put that sustainable language in there. And the email, you can read it yourselves. It just says, additionally, the motion means Waputa will only advance our alternative proposal should legislation be introduced that would rely on utility funding, such as a systems benefits charge to fund statewide low-income assistance. The committee decided a statewide low-income assistance program fully funded by the state, which replaces the compliance obligations with CETA, is a preferred option. So anyway, staff needed some direction because now is the time really that they start engaging between now and the next WAPUTA meeting. So they got it. Any questions on that?
No, and I did hear, I think most of that and was there for that vote, even though I'm not the voting member. I think just a couple bits of information is one, don't kick over any stones until you need to, right? See how the thing plays out. And the other one, and this is a concern with everything that comes before the legislature anymore as it relates to utilities, and that's preserving our local autonomy, our local ability to make our own decisions. I think that's the biggest driving factor in what put a policy on every level now, whether it's water, telecom, or energy, is that we have to really look closely at what compromises we make or what recommendations we make and how that affects our autonomy. It seems like everybody seems to be coming after our ability for us to not make our own decisions. So that's a little bit of a flavor and background.
Sure. So then I'll be at the ICG meeting. I've got a lunch meeting with Mike Bailey this Friday that I'm looking forward to. I'll be at the PUD board meetings next week on the 25th. Got a meeting with Kevin on the 27th. The North Olympic Development Council meets December 5th. I'll be a part of that. And then looking ahead, Energy Northwest meets on December 11th and 12th. Because it's December, I'm not planning to drive over there. I'll participate in that via Zoom, and that's going to be my last meeting before Dan takes over the Energy Northwest role. So that is my report. So, and Dan, you might want to tune into that one too, as kind of a transition. December 11th and 12th. Do you get notices of those things?
I get most of them.
Susan, yeah. If you don't have it, just reach out to her and she can send you the link. December 11th and 12th. So basically, 11th is all day, and then the 12th is just through the morning is the schedule on those things. Okay, so now we're down to consent agenda. I need to relook at this thing to see if there was any issues I had. I don't think I had any issues with that. Do we have any questions on consent agenda, or can we just move it?
I'll make the motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. I'm not seeing anybody's hands up. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye, we have approved the consent agenda. Old business, utility assistance grants. Jean, are you going to lead us on this one?
I am. So we reached out to Tom Tiersch, and the concerns he had were not related to the language we are adding for the utility assistance grants. His concerns related to section 11.4.1, the medical emergency shutoff protection, which is existing language. I don't disagree with his comments, so we'll probably bring that back at a later meeting. But we just need to get the resolution approved for 11.4.4 utility assistance grants.
Roger that. So we have some amended language to our existing utility assistance programs with the idea of using, what's the organization again?
United Good Neighbors,
United Good
UGN.
Grant you've applied for that would give us some additional funding to help. So commissioners, do we have any questions on this program or on this resolution?
So just one question, on the fiscal impacts of the presentation there, it says costs are expected to be immaterial. So what do we mean by immaterial? I mean, is there a low cost, no cost? What exactly does staff mean with that?
Is it staff time? Yeah, what are
The staff time to manage the program itself, we would just need to track and who got the grants, how much money was going out, and then Drew would have to process applications. And most of that work is already being done. It's very little additional work to be added.
Okay, so you were not anticipating adding new staff for
No.
And did Did Jean say she needed a little more time or wanted, or are we in a position? Because I know the recommendation was approve the resolution. So a little more clarification. Do we want a resolution approval tonight or we want to wait?
We're good. Staff is good. If the board is good.
Okay. Okay. Ken?
Yeah, I move to approve the resolution.
Okay.
I'll
So
second the motion.
we have a resolution creating a utility assistance grant shutoff protection program for its low-income residential customers. Okay, I'm going to read the whole thing because that sounds a little odd. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Public Utility District Number 1, creating a utility assistance grant shutoff program for its low-income. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion of the board? Do we have any questions from the public on this or comments? I'm not seeing any hands. All right. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have approved the grant resolution, and thank you, Jean, for continuing to find ways to help our customers in need.
Absolutely.
So I have a post resolution question.
Okay.
If someone is on an AMI meter that can be shut off and reconnected remotely, are they charged the same amount for that reconnection as if a crew actually went out to have to pull the meter?
Under current policy, yes. However, we aren't quite to that point yet in being able to disconnect all meters remotely. And I'll let Kevin weigh in if he has anything else to say, but we will look at that and options to remove fees in future meetings, as well as I would like to look at prepaid.
Okay. Yeah, it might be nice to add a category of, for disconnect, reconnect, if it can be done
Mhm.
remotely, and estimating what that cost is versus rolling a crew, whatever.
Yeah. I would say we would still have a charge for it because it does take time and energy, but it could be drastically reduced.
Okay. So we're moving on to I'm confused. I confused myself.
On water leak or we?
Yeah, we did assisted. Did I jump ahead? What happened?
No, that's the next thing on the agenda.
So we're on the water leak policy update. It was Ken's question that threw me off.
And and just quick, when did you insert the ICG one in there?
That's down under new
Is it? Okay.
business.
All right.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Thanks for bringing that up. Water leak policy update. Is that Gene also?
It is.
Okay. It is.
So we've brought it back, leaving the language that the customer will pay first tier water rate. And we've removed the language not to exceed $1,000. So we've removed that cap.
Okay. And I think you did a good job of, we basically made policy on the fly at that meeting, and it looks like you've made the policy consistent with how the conclusion we reached at that meeting. So, Commissioner, questions?
Yeah, I didn't go back and listen, but I
Mhm.
just met all the criteria, the discussion results that we had. So
Right. Basically, we were okay with the existing policy except for how it was being interpreted, and that was because of that $1,000 thing. So once we get rid of that, there's really no interpretation. It's like you determine the amount of the leak and you charge the tier 1 rate, and they still need to meet the other qualifications that they weren't doing it intentionally and they caught it and they repaired it, blah, blah, blah. And then they're just charged the tier 1 rate, which is where we landed in that meeting. So Ken, are you okay with it also?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So it looks like, Gene, you're also ready for this. Is that correct?
Yes, I
Okay.
am.
so I'll make the motion to accept the resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Public Utility District Number 1 of Jefferson County, amending the customer service policy section 10.3.3 water leak adjustments.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second?
Second.
Yep. Gotcha. And motion and a second. Do we have any public comments or questions on this one? Not seeing any hands. All in favor of the resolution, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good job, Gene. That's like the fastest policy change we've ever had. That was lickety split. And
Good job, gentlemen. Thank
well,
you.
that was a tough one. You know, that was a little challenging, but hopefully this will help in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're blazing through this stuff. Now we're on to capacity charges. Maybe we just need a warm-up meeting all the time and we can just zoom through.
So, and I hope this one zooms through.
Well,
So-
well, you know, but we're on touch 1003 as well. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So we're bringing back the capacity charge. I'm very grateful that this capacity charge is coming back after the FCS presentation because it does show the need for us to do this. So the staff, the recommendation is to have a capacity charge of $2,150.40. That's approximately 40% of what FCS recommended we could do at full charge. We are recommending that there is a 10% per year for the next 3 years that would go up. And then this would be part of the yearly budget process. So the board could say, you know, we want to waive either the 10% or make some changes. We do recommend that if there's a project being built by a nonprofit, 501c3, that there would be a 20% calculation of the KVA. So if there's any questions, we do have a resolution in there. We can go through the resolution real quick. Joel can bring that up. Do you want to talk any on the resolution, Joel?
Oh, I think the only just summarizes the rate and how you got there and your, you know, basic findings for imposing the fee, the charge, and the idea also that this was a point that came up last meeting, but I think we meet the issue of any joint governmental projects that the PUD is providing or extending services to. We have the ability to address that fee on an individual case basis and determine, you know, what portion our other government agency is providing in certain costs. And, you know, the idea would be that the PUD would be able to calculate any benefits it's receiving and might reduce cost to the overall project. But there has to be some sort of in-kind benefit to the PUD.
Right. Okay, questions of commissioners.
Yeah, so we've beaten this one to a skeleton. I'm always concerned when we don't take the advice after spending a lot of time and effort and money to have you know, experts make recommendations and look at these things. But you know, we need to, in my opinion, this is something the manager alluded to that we need to do. So I'm all for getting this thing going. But again, you know, I guess my question is for staff is, do we have the mechanisms and the responsibilities in place for staff to track this? Obviously we have it in there that the board's going to review it every year to track, you know, the revenue component of this versus, you know, how much build out there is, how many permits, you know, might be in the works. I mean, is staff going to stay on top of this to evaluate it in real time?
Every work order we do will have this as a component of the work order. So it'll be easily tracked and we can show the revenues coming in and what it's done for our capacity.
Okay.
I will point out one thing. The resolution says December 1st, 2024. We can change that effective date very easily, but that is what's on the resolution.
Right.
I say we've been discussing this for at least a year and a half to my recollection. So
Ken?
Yeah, I move that the Board of Commissioners pass a resolution establishing capacity fees and charges for electric services provided by the PUD.
So before I had some question, I found a typo in the resolution and I have a couple of questions. Could we have a little more discussion before we,
I haven't seconded it.
yeah, would you mind withdrawing that, Ken, so we could talk about it a little bit more?
Well, you can have a motion second and have it seconded and have as much discussion as you want.
I think we need to amend the resolution is my point. I think there's some.
All right, I'll withdraw the motion.
So I'll go quickly. So the first typo is in section 3, where it says under 501c3 of the Federal Internal Revenue Code is amended to July 23rd, 1990. It's not a full date. It's missing, at least on what I'm looking at.
Is this a recital?
It should be 1995. Yeah. Sorry.
1995. Okay, so that's in the resolution section 7, or pardon me, section 3.
Section 3. Yeah.
Should read 1995 as the date. So that's one issue. Then I had, oh, and I'll go to the next one. So the way the low income discount is working, let me see if I got this right. It's 20% of the way I was reading it, it's 20% of the maximum, or it's 20% of whatever the current rate is.
So the maximum is what we're saying right now is the
5,376,
yeah.
and that's what the low income rate would be set at.
It would be set at 20% of that.
20% of that.
So what I was going to propose that rather than 20% of the maximum, that we have the low income rate be 20% of whatever the current rate is.
20% of the 40%, the 2,000.
Yeah, 20% of whatever that current rate is. And I was going to throw that out to the other two commissioners. I don't know if you want to talk about that one before we move on.
Well, again, I think as long as it's written in a way that as this escalates, because there's an escalator in there of that stay that way throughout.
That's another question I have.
Throughout the course of this policy.
Right. It's just whatever the current rate is. And then the second part was, how would is that escalation covered in here, or would we come back every year and have a new resolution increasing at 10%? I didn't quite catch that.
The intent is it automatically goes up 10% unless the board says no.
Where is that language in this policy? Because I didn't see it.
And I thought I saw it.
I saw it like in the whereases, but I didn't see it in, a whereas isn't policy. It's the intent for the policy. Where is that?
The whereases are incorporated into the resolution.
Okay, but in my experience, that's not normally how you would do that. You'd actually have it written in the policy that these rates shall increase 10% per year on this date or something. I don't know. That's
We
just,
could change that. We could add that into
I think that would be more clear than having it in a whereas.
So if we make those changes.
Oh,
can
I
we-
got one more.
Okay.
So even though, as Dan correctly says, we've been talking about this for a while, I am concerned that this is a big deal. This is like when the city adopted system development charges, the county's talking about doing that with the sewer system. When communities do this, it's a big deal. And then when the builders and everybody finds out, they're like, so my concern is that I think, and we're going to have this on top of these rate increases. I think we really need to tell our story. Why is this necessary? And the whole concept of everything we went through, that we think this is more fair, that new development pay for some of the impacts of new development. So I'm kind of wondering, what have we done and can we do in the newsletter? What have we done and can we do with press releases that read like a newspaper story? Because you can't assume the newspaper is going to write it correctly. So you got to write it for them, and they can edit it if they want to. So those are my concerns. And then that implementation date of December 1, my concern is that doesn't give us enough time really to kind of tell our story before people start getting hit with this. And we've got people screaming and yelling, hey, the PUD is suddenly charging X thousands more. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, we notice our meetings, we notice our agendas. This has been out there for a long time. And I don't know if it's been in the newsletter or not. I think we have had capacity fee or impact fee related things in the newsletter. So the December 1st, I don't think we should change that. I think we should move forward with this because again, we've put it off for a long time. I do think it's fine that we message this out better or, maybe get more information about it, but I'm not as concerned about that. Yes, there's going to be collateral impacts. Maybe someone decides not to do a project in the county or not. I don't think we should revolve this around, what might happen because one particular developer doesn't like this. I think we need to move forward, and that may draw some attention. That people do need to pay more attention to our meetings, do need to pay more attention to our budgets and the policies that we're putting in place.
Ken, any thoughts?
Yes, I do have thoughts. One of them being that the 10% per year increase is listed under recommendations on the agenda report. It's not in the resolution at all.
Yeah, it needs to be in there, and it should be. It's fine to have a whereas on it, but you need it in the policy.
I was thinking it was in there somewhere, but I must.
No, it's not in the resolution. I drafted the resolution and I didn't realize that that was
Well, that's why the
being
board,
proposed. Yeah,
we're your backstop. We catch
I
those.
appreciate it. No, we have to get the sausage right. So
What else, Ken?
Otherwise, I'm in favor of implementing this, probably not this year. I think that it feels, and I know we've been discussing it for a long time, but in terms of being able to make the public aware, especially during holiday season, I think it would be better to hold off until maybe the end of the first quarter of next year before implementation.
Okay, so that would be when is the end of the first quarter?
It'll be the end of March.
End of March.
So like
Again,
April 1 is kind of what you're throwing out there.
maybe
Yes.
willing to go maybe January 1, but I just don't think we should push this out any further. I'm sorry. I think you're going to have a rush to the gate of people. Oh, now we've got until April 1st to do something different. It's like, no, they should have been watching and paying attention. FCS is working on a cost of service and a rate study. This just makes their job harder to try and determine revenues and expenses and those sorts of things. Again, January 1 maybe, but I think the end of the first quarter is still giving it too much time.
So I have a compromise solution. How about February 3rd, which is the first Monday in February? That gives us, what is that, 3 months or something? 1, 2, it's like a little over, 2 months, 8 weeks.
Sure.
How would that be?
Sure. February 1st.
I can live with that.
All right, so let's make it effective February. So I'm gonna try and summarize everything. I don't know. I think we may need to bring this back because you've got to draft the language on the 10% deal.
Yeah.
So let's make it effective February 3rd, first Monday in February 2025. Let's do that. Add a policy on the 10% increase. Are both commissioners okay with the low income being 20% of whatever the current rate is? Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've reduced it for everyone else.
Yeah,
so.
make that change and then bring it back to us at the next board meeting. I think we shouldn't have any consent agendas just so we can go through everything and make sure it's cool. And then I would recommend you start drafting newsletter stuff and something for the paper and really, it's hard to explain, but I think you could kind of weave it together with, we're dealing with some big ticket items and we're trying to cover the costs in the most fair way. And then help explain to them, things like the hospital and things like, new substations and everything else that we're going to go after grants. We're going to do everything we can, but money doesn't come from a tree.
This is designed to help with the upward pressure on rates.
Absolutely. It's
That's
not,
the line for me is this. We're trying to help lessen the impact on our rates.
okay. Ken, you still got your hand up? Do you have anything else?
I'm taking my hand down.
Okay. So I don't think we need a motion at this point. We've kind of given
No.
staff, so we're cool on that. Okay. Well, that's serious progress. So thank you. Any
Thank you,
thoughts?
guys.
Any thoughts from you guys on the communication and the messaging and when and how you'd make that happen, or you just want to come back with a report next time?
Will will start working on some stuff with his team and get back to you guys.
Okay, and I agree with Dan too. It's like we've been talking about this forever, and it's like at some point you have to decide, and it's like I think we've massaged it as much as we're going to be able to. It's like time to deliver the medicine. Okay, here we go. Next item. Give me a second to scroll back down through here. So, ILA for Port Hadlock.
So the ILA for Port Hadlock, we've been working on this quite a long time with the county. Really thank Joel, and he spent a lot of time with their legal person to get this through. Now the cities, or not the city, excuse me, the county's ready to move it forward. They want to expedite it as quick as we can. So the thing I will say about this agreement is I believe the PUD is covered by the charges we have in there. I believe we will be made whole. I think this makes us a better utility, specifically in the water. It gives us some capabilities that we don't have now, and it gives us some additional resources. So I really do recommend we move forward with this. Monty with the county has worked with me on it before it went to the legal team. So we're, as staff, myself personally, I like this agreement, and I think it covers all of our bases that we need.
Okay, Commissioner, questions on this one?
Yeah, I'll have a, a couple. Again, appreciate what General Manager had to say there. And I actually spoke with Kevin yesterday about this policy when it came through, and I read it and gave him a more of an overview of my, things I had noticed with it. And, one of those, it calls out a lot of things as you go through the whole document. Some questions that you get early on get answered later about the revenue components in particular. So for me, it's more maybe about language. And on page 67 of the packet, which is page 6 of the agreement, it says right in there, the county is and shall remain the owner of the system. That's great that we're making sure that that stuff is clearly called out. Right below that in section 9, for future expansion and extensions, the language there is JPUD shall participate in efforts with the county to extend service to other areas inside the Port Hadlock UGA. So my question is because it says shall participate, what our level involvement is? Is that an engineering type of a position that we need to help with engineering? Is it just about asking about our ability to supply further service of an expanded sewer? I mean, what does that shall, commit us to? I guess that's my question on that language in that particular part of it under expansion and extension of the system.
And that's page what again? On what
Page
section?
6 of the document, page 67 of the packet.
Okay, thank you.
And it's section 8, and it's on
Section 8.
ownership.
Okay, thanks.
So just to make sure that we have the discussion in the open now, so later on, well, that's not what we thought my interpretation of shall participate,
I mean,
in efforts to extend this next level of service should be.
I mean, in my mind, that means it could be as little as you show up to the meeting, you talk about the proposal, and you say, no, we don't want to do that. I mean, yeah, that's a great question.
So I'm just kind of curious, it's not an indictment on anything. It's just how do we as a utility interpretate what our next effort level will be and as they extend it to the next phase?
Yeah, what does that bind us to?
What does it bind us to, or does it really bind us at all?
So, and I went back in how I interpret it, and I need Joel to comment here, is as it expands, we have to expand our work that we've agreed to do. We have to, it takes more work because there's more equipment in the ground. we have to supply a lot of reports to the county on an ongoing basis. How they set a lot of this up is based on water, that usage, because it's in our water system. So those are how we are gonna participate, and we have to, because they want, this is truly a partnership. So that's how I took it, is that
Well,
as they expand, we expand.
and I think if you read the whole section, it does provide some context. County and the PUD agree that expansion to serve additional areas is desirable. I mean, and this is for us.
Oh,
Just,
no,
do we
and
agree with this stuff?
yeah, and I'm all for us being involved and for them doing what they're
Both
doing. Don't
parties
get me
shall
wrong. I just
cooperate in efforts to bring sewer service to additional customers. County shall take the lead in developing financing plans, and it just says we'll participate with. So it sounds like it's kind of setting the stage for it, and we would discuss stuff. And if for some reason it's like going to be a huge problem, we could bring it up. I mean,
Yeah. I just want to make sure we discuss that
Yeah.
before we sign off, because it can, maybe something later comes out of that that we hadn't anticipated. I see
Yeah.
Ken's got.
Ken, you got your hand up?
I do. Two questions. Where is the wastewater infiltration pond going to be located?
It's already there. It's kind of down across from the hardware store there, south in that swale area, I believe.
Is this stuff something we could get tours to or take?
Great,
out
yeah,
to?
we can get tours for you
Yeah,
all.
that'd be nice to go see everything. Does that answer your question, Ken?
And that answers my first question. My second question is, what will the ability of the system be to increase capacity going forward? What's the limit here? Or is there no limit?
Technically, there is no limit, because it's a modular unit, and when they exceed the capacity of the existing system, they pull in another unit, set it up right next to the existing unit.
Did they size the pipes to basically serve the entire area so that it, because you've got these pressurized pipes, right, that are going through neighborhoods and stuff and eventually collect. So all that was sized, assuming that the whole thing could get bigger and you wouldn't have to dig those pipes up and replace them.
Correct. That has
Okay.
been taken into account, and there's spare.
Okay, so it
capacity
should be able to be
throughout.
expanded, and if it exceeds the first phase, then they could add another unit and treat more water and, okay.
Yeah, and then further on and this was the infiltration pond, it says the county may have equipment to provide for vegetation management at our request. Otherwise, I'm assuming that we will take care of the vegetation management. So, I mean, there's different things that cross over further on in the document, and the infiltration ponds one. I see Sam's got her hand up, so maybe Sam wants to.
Samantha Harper.
Hi, I just wanted to help if I can. So I was looking for something to do, so I thought I would join the meeting. So if is it okay that I just jump in just to help with some of the questions?
Waiting.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna rewind for a half a second or maybe longer, but to answer the question, the rapid infiltration pond is located south of Lopeman. So it'd be north of Cotton Ready Mix, where they have their concrete plant there where Cotton is and Schold work out of. And that is where the infiltration pond is currently located. The second part is the units that are coming from Ovivo, they're coming out of Texas. They are the design flow is 64,000 gallons per day, and the maximum flow is 90,000 gallons per day. I want to say that's roughly, if I'm remembering correctly, about 550 ERU or somewhere in that range to 600 ERU before we get the flow capacity to start looking, because I believe it's when you're about 85%, you want to start looking at increasing the plant. And Kevin's correct, they're module units, so you can add another skid unit to the site that we currently have, and we have designed for future expansion of the plant itself and area. And in regards to the pipe and how big the low pressure sewer lines are, our largest is a 6-inch line. We have put in some of our runs, like down to the old alcohol plant will be a future phase. I mean, we don't have money for currently. We put in a dual 4-inch line so that it could connect. So it goes from right now behind the Kivley Center. So at the 4-way intersection there of Chimacum, Irondale, and Nessett's Corner, at that intersection behind Kivley Center, we have a 4-inch that goes from there all the way to the plant. And then we're also putting in a dual 6-inch line that will come up Cedar Avenue. We've gotten some interest in that northern residential area. So we wanted to make sure we have enough supply. So there is a limit to get the whole, depending on how it develops out, there may be some upsizing in the future. But for the most part, coming into the plant, we're doing, we did put in parallel lines to think about that for expansion in the future. And yes, we are giving tours. So anytime, please reach out. We would be happy to.
If I heard your numbers there, Sam, is you're like 560 is the capacity and you're starting out at like 200?
Somewhere in there. Habitat, when Habitat comes online, if they have all of the units, and yeah, so we're somewhere in that range. I want to say I can get the exact number. I'm always bad with throwing numbers out and if it's wrong, but I can get somewhere a little bit closer. We have a projection of what that would be if everybody comes online who thinks they're going to.
Ken, did you have any more questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. One of the things I saw was in the bottom of page 6, section 12.1 says at least 30 days before operation of the sewer system, county shall provide PUD with all existing operation and maintenance manuals, I just thought, is that cutting it a little tight? I mean, and what is our plan on getting a person to run this thing? Because this is going to happen in like June, right? Something like that, June or July?
Yeah, well, that took us to page 9 and section 12.4.7, which is wastewater treatment plant staffing.
Yeah. Yeah. Where are we at in having a person? Are we going to be able to do this? Is this enough time for someone to get it and be up to speed on running it?
Our goal is as soon as we have someone to try to interface closely with the county and what's going on there. So the documentation, I didn't think was gonna be a huge deal at
Okay.
that time. 'Cause
Okay.
they'll have spent many hours with the plant by that time.
Okay. And what's our plan on getting that live body to operate this thing?
We're ready to hire the live body as soon as.
We have
this-
somebody?
No, we're ready.
We have to go out and
yeah,
advertise.
Have to go out.
Because the agreement says we shall employ additional
Right.
staff and expertise and
Yes.
certifications required for operation. So I don't know how much leniency or leeway the county and we are going to be with getting that particular part of this agreement
Right.
in place.
This is going to land in our laps and we have to have somebody that can run it
Correct.
in June or July or something like
Does
that.
Sam still have a question or is she still just listening?
No, I'm just bad about lowering my hand.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah. So this is a big document. First touch, we've raised some questions. Sounds like staff is ready for us to.
Yes, can I just comment on that, Commissioner?
Yeah, please, Joel.
So Kevin and I think we had a kind of overview with you a few months ago about this. And the county is really anxious for us to approve this document. Kevin and I, in terms of our negotiations with the county, which have been, completely amicable, and we really had two major concerns. One was that the county was going to actually agree to pay for the cost of operating the facility, and that our participation was contingent upon that, and the agreement does that. And it was originally proposed to be quite a lengthy term, something like 20 years. I think now it's about a 10-year term, but we have the opportunity to give notice within 2 years, and there's a one-time kind of opt out if within the first 2 years if it's just not working for
Right.
us. for the PUD's purpose. You know, no cause, no harm, no foul, we can back out. And we both felt it was really important that the PUD have that. And the county was more than willing to put it forward. So they were hoping that you would pass it tonight, but that's your
Well,
call.
and I guess from my perspective, something like this, an interlocal off, you know, if something comes up that, oh, geez, we
Moving
didn't
targets.
catch that, that can be, you can amend it. And I'm guessing that the major things you want to have are, you know, you don't want to go back to them and say, well, we think you should be paying twice as much. You know, it sounds like you've given a lot of thought to the major components that, you know, you're agreeing on, and stuff that we don't realize is a problem, we could probably work through and amend as needed.
Yeah, and there's different, like I said, different lines through there that as you read through it, your questions kind of get answered some ways along the way. And one of the things that's in there is it's called out pretty clearly, county shall cooperate in making sure JPUD will recover such costs.
Right.
That's one that has to do with our equipment that we utilize and things like that. So
Yeah.
I did have a couple more questions. I mean, I anticipated that we would want to move this forward tonight. So I had some questions and wanted to point out things that are in there that might answer people's questions that don't have the opportunity to ask now before we move this forward. And again, another question I have is, and it relates to the operations and the maintenance duties. Will the person that we're hiring, it calls in there, cleaning membranes as required? Is that something the person will do, or is that something we contract out? I mean, the cleaning of the membranes, I don't know what the schedule will be for that particular activity, but is that something that the person will hire will do, or is that something we will hire out? And just to make sure that we're all on the same page, that could be a cost we're going to contract out, and the county might be expecting us to be having that as part of something we've already agreed to. So those are the kind of things, to me, is have there been discussions about these duties when it comes to operation and maintenance of that we're all on the same page of what we need reimbursed for or what may be contracted.
We're contracted to operate it, so
Okay.
whatever it takes to operate, we are gonna do. When we have the operator there, the county is paying for half of the operator, because it's not a full-time job. So we get reimbursed that way.
And we're anticipating using his other half with other duties related to other
For the PUD
infrastructure.
infrastructure.
Right.
If we have crews there working, then we get reimbursed for our crews, but we will run the system. We will do
Mhm.
those certain things you brought up earlier. Okay. Mowing, we mow septic systems now all the time. So if the county can provide equipment, great. If not, then we would do it, but we would get reimbursed from the county on those type of jobs.
Yeah, because it calls out in there as well, they want to be efficient. We want to be efficient. So we need to make sure that we're all on the same page on efficiencies, which is the sharing of people, the sharing of materials if necessary, or the sharing of equipment and that such of things. And I don't see any problem there. I think we get along with the county really well. We get along with, all of our partners in the county really well. I don't see those necessarily being an issue. Timing, maybe, depending on when it has to be done and how critical the issues may be.
Scheduling.
Yeah, scheduling. So I get that part of it. So another quick thing I wanted to call out here too, and that is the biosolid transport. It says JPUD shall, not will or may, it's shall. That's pretty definitive in legal terms that this is what you're going to do. Will be responsible for arranging for the transportation of biosolids from the system to the city of Port Townsend compost facility. So again, the question is, what's our cost recovery? Is that something we intend to keep in-house, contract out, work with another partner? Just looking at that particular, how we're going to deal with that particular phase of the operation.
We won't haul it. We will contract others to do the hauling, but we have to be there to make sure that everything is done correctly. But yeah, this is the hauling will not be us. It will be
Yeah,
others.
because again, I don't know how the county envisions this relationship and this contract work. I just want to make sure we're all kind of looking through the same lenses here as to who's going to do what, how the cost will be recovered, and that everybody, we show up in Port Townsend at the sewer plant there and they say, hey, what is this coming here for? It's like, that we've got the communication in place and the systems in place that everybody is aware of the responsibilities and the cost recoveries.
The facility already takes solids. You know, so that part we would just be another truck going through there and dropping it off.
So bottom line, it sounds like we get 50% of the coverage of this new person we're hiring. The other 50% will be used on other PUD equipment and facilities. And then everything else, the county will pay for. We just have to provide documentation of what those expenses are and reports and things. That's
It's a little bit different, Jeff. When the crew goes out, let's say, and changes out a grinder pump and those, we get reimbursed for those right away. But there is a monthly fee for the billing and stuff. That's just a flat fee. So some of it is a flat fee. We get $800 per month, to help with the
that
phone
seemed like a
calls.
heck of a deal, by the way, for whatever customer
Yeah,
service work we do.
You know, I talked to Gene, Mike, we already have people there. It's really tough to come up with a cost. We
Yeah.
felt that really covered everything that we're expecting now.
Okay.
Um,
And again, we're not anticipating hiring more customer service staff to handle the additional.
not-
Okay.
There is a little bit of a setup fee, you know, with NISC, and Jean has some of her time, but there's minimum charge there. So with what we know today, we feel that the PUD's covered. There is that review in 2 years that Joel talked about that's going to be crucial, because by then the county will know and we'll know.
Is it a review in 2 years, or is it we just have to give 2 years notice if we wanted to exit the contract? So I guess, is there a clarification needed there, or what exactly is that 2-year threshold we're referring to? Sounded like Joel was saying we had to give him 2 years notice before we would get out of the 10-year contract. So it sounds like we're talking about two different 2-year thresholds here.
Yeah, at 2 years, we do a review.
Just making
We-
sure
we-
we're all
we
on the
can-
same
yeah,
page. That's the way the county understands it and read it and agreed, so. It's better that we're on the record than trying to figure it out later.
Ken, do you have any more questions?
I don't. I would like to move the question.
Okay. So how about I'll try to state it. I think what we're looking for is to approve the interlocal agreement and to authorize the signing of it. Does that sound right, Joel?
Yes.
Okay.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion to commissioners?
Again, I just want to make sure that, again, before we move it on and the county moves it on, that we're all on the same page. I did talk to Kevin a little bit about cost recoveries and about, because also in there, the low income program, we are designated as responsible for that. You've asked about, what additional employees it might take for customer service or doing these sorts of things. And so Kevin, that was one of the questions I asked Kevin, and he was aware of that. So I won't go through it tonight because Kevin has made the recommendation that he thinks that we're going to be made whole, recovered costs, that sort of thing. So there were several issues in there where I said, it seems a little vague to me about whether or not this is actually explicitly called out as to how we would be reimbursed. And again, as we've experienced already in other lines of the business now, timing matters on this billing type of stuff. So cash flow issues was another thing for me. This is one more thing we're piling on. Is this going to be a cash flow issue for us the way it's set up? And Kevin's opinion was
It is not.
that it is
a
not.
Cash flow issue for us.
There won't be any cash flow issues. So I'm just, again, trying to make sure that we're going into this eyes wide open, and understanding that we're all on the same page when it comes to particularly responsibilities, revenues, and expenses.
Right. And I suspect that as we start working this, like other policies that we utilize that provide direction to customer assistance and everything else, that we probably will need to come back and make some tweaks and get some things added to it. But I think the county and the PUD were both trying to look at, here's a problem. We got an opportunity with money in a facility. Who's the best at doing which parts of it? How much are we going to split the costs? And it seems like those things have been covered, and it seems like we are at the table trying to work together on this.
And I'll throw this out there, low income. These customers are our water customers and our power customers. we already have them either as low income or not. It is not a heavy lift to say, oh yeah, this customer does qualify for our program.
Right.
So the synergies between this new program and ours are great.
Right.
Well, and honestly, this first phase is more commercial. If I'm not mistaken, there's very few residential customers in this first, so I wouldn't expect the low income really to be at issue. I know maybe Samantha knows more of who's going to be on the system or not, but that's my understanding of this first phase. It's really more commercial oriented.
Okay. Joel, you got your hand up?
I do. I wanted to address one of the questions. It is a 2-year notice. It's not a 2-year look back at
What
of the
section is
first
that,
2 years.
Joel?
It's I think section 28 termination. Either party may terminate this agreement at any time with or without cause, providing at least 2 years prior notice. I mean, the way that, so let's say there's an expansion proposed by the county. This is just using Commissioner Tupper's example. There's an expansion that we're required to participate in, and somehow, some reason, we don't want to participate in it. The way the mechanism would work is we'd give our 2-year notice.
Right.
And then, that would trigger a discussion and, renegotiation of something.
They find somebody else to run it.
So if
Or we'd
Kevin-
address the agreement in a certain way.
is that in there? Is that something we've agreed to just in principle, or is there something in writing about the 2-year review? Is what Kevin seems to be alluding to.
Kevin and I had that in there. It got changed to a 2-year notice. So, if we wanted to get out, it might take more than 2 years, but it wouldn't take 10.
Right. And it basically says you can give at least 2 years notice that you want the thing to expire or that you need to negotiate new terms.
Yep. Yeah. And so, that's how that would work. And I just want to say one last thing about the chief civil deputy prosecutor, Phil Hunsaker, was really instrumental in adding a lot of clarity to this agreement. And he was really great to work with. And it was, I was happy to have him as a counterpart.
And then it further goes on to say, the actual termination language of at least 2 years.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it seems
It's
like
pretty clear.
You've gone through it as clearly as you can before you've gotten your hands on it and figured out how to do it. So
Yeah.
got a
That's
motion in a
right.
second. I don't see, is there any public that has any questions or want to comment on this? Sam, do you have anything more to say? You don't have to. Okay, no. All right. So we have a motion and a second to approve the ILA and authorize signing of it. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Cool. Well, this
Thanks,
is
commissioners.
going on for at least over 10 years. I don't know when it first started. It's been a
That
long
box
time.
door has been 50 years in the making.
Well, when they got serious, started figuring out actual costs and design and everything.
Yeah, it's gone
that's-
pretty fast in the last 5 years.
Yeah. Okay, next item. Are we down to new business now?
Yes.
That's the one for the ICG resolution. Yes. So, did Ken get a chance to see this? Kevin handed.
Emailed to you guys earlier
Okay.
today.
So we got the ICG meeting on Thursday. There's just this joint resolution, which we re-up every, year or so, basically saying we want to keep doing it. And there's just a few little tweaks to it. We don't have to take action on this tonight. This was just a chance for us to bring up any issues with Kevin or discuss it ourselves. So I read through it. I didn't have any questions or issues.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add at this point.
Okay. Ken, do you have anything on it?
I don't because I don't have the email.
Oh,
It came from Carolyn Galloway at the county commissioner's office.
yeah. So Carolyn sent it out today, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's an email today with attachments of the agenda and this
Yeah,
resolution.
like
I still don't have it.
Okay.
Interesting.
Can somebody forward that to Ken?
We'll get it to you, Ken.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So if nothing on that one, then we're down to memberships, councils, and committees, and I had emailed Kevin and Annette back a couple of edits because it had me staying as the Energy Northwest board member and it had Dan staying as the NOAANET board member, and I thought we were switching.
Well, it's the current standing. Normally, we address this at the first meeting in January, don't we? We're
Mhm.
To jump on things.
So this is, again, it's,
You want to change it now to show currently what next year will look like.
Well,
Is that what I'm hearing?
this is for 2025.
Yep.
So it would become effective January 1st, 2025.
Okay.
So is that your understanding too, that you were going to do Energy Northwest and I was going to do NOAANET?
Yep.
Because Ken released both of those and that's how it worked. And it was like 3-year things. Okay. Any other changes that we caught on there?
Well, I know that the Jefferson County Infrastructure Advisory Committee is the same thing that's on the other side of the document, or it's further down.
That listed twice.
Yeah, it's listed twice for the public infrastructure fund. is it
PIF
not?
fund.
Yeah, they're listed twice, so that we don't need those listed twice.
Maybe you could just put PIF
Yeah,
in there, make them together and make them one line.
yeah. So that was one thing I noticed.
Okay.
What else do we have here?
Oh, and then the EDC.
Yeah.
You, Dan, and it's supposed to be me.
You're the next up in rotation.
Yeah,
Ken.
so-
This was Ken's year, and then
Yeah.
you're next up again.
Yeah, so EDC should be me
Unless
for next year.
unless Ken wants it, or you, it's up to you guys. It doesn't matter to me.
I kind of like the 1-year rotation thing. Are you okay with that, Ken?
I'm fine either way.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I'd like to be back on that since,
And then that's fine. Like I
Okay.
said, I have no.
so you got that, Kevin? Okay.
And
And
then on-
that's it. That's all I
Then
saw.
on the fire chiefs, I know that Dawn hasn't been attending lately, and I think we should probably move Jeff Dodd.
Hold on, excuse me, Will had a comment on the EDC. We do pay for that one and we show the 0 now, so we'll
Oh.
change that also.
There is a little, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're all making, right? The city, the county, and
And
us. We all.
Funding
Yes.
For the dues, or was this like a reoccurring one? What are you referring to?
It's an annual.
It's the payment, whether
Oh,
you call
okay.
it dues.
It's a contribution.
It is.
So anyhow, yeah, I'm just gonna go to the Fire Chiefs Association. Don's kind of weaned out of that. And I was just wondering with our safety person, Jeff's been attending those meetings. I think he adds a lot, and it's good for him to hear what's going on there. So I'm just a question for Kevin and staff is, should we maybe put Jeff as a regular on the Fire Chiefs, or Mike? I know Mike has attended those as well. So
Yeah.
how do you see that blend there? Especially with your departure later next year possibly too. Get some people moved into some of those spots that you normally attend.
I know Jeff and Mike have been going to them. I have not the last couple meetings. They can attend and I think that's good.
Again, it's up to you to make those determinations. I'm just saying that's seems to be the natural order of things for me moving forward, to start looking at somebody else looking at those.
So maybe add Jeff on there
Mhm.
and maybe Mike too. Okay.
And what else did we have? Pacific Northwest, PNUC. Okay, now I've made one meeting and I'm down there a lot of the time, but I don't usually stay the second, justify the cost of staying
And I think that should be, and I think that should be all too.
That's what I have. I have
Yeah,
all
I
written in
think,
there.
I think
So
that should be all.
that's what the board felt that we should
Yep.
all be.
It should be,
Yes.
any of us that should go.
Okay.
Yep.
And I guess the other thing too, where we're all listed for anything, is obviously we usually have a voting member, but we should all be listed as alternates. I think we've gotten that straightened out for Waputa in particular, but I'm just, again,
Some of these, you can't have alternates.
oh, really?
Mm.
Okay, so just something to be aware of. If someone can't make the meeting, what's the process?
Yeah.
If there's something we need to vote on or we need to
Yeah.
weigh in, so I'm just curious how that works on that one in particular, because I've only made the one meeting.
Yeah, and they don't usually have, it's more of an informational thing. It's not as much of a voting kind of thing. They're not really taking positions like PPC or Waputa does. It's really a opportunity to learn and share and educate is more, I think, what PNUC is about. And it's really cool.
No, that's, I'm just curious. As I looked at it,
And it's got the for-profit utilities in there too. So we hear things that you don't normally hear.
So, and again, I see, again, if Kevin, on his announcement today, depending on how that all plays out, the North Olympic Legislative Alliance, is that
Yeah.
something we should be looking at who's gonna represent us on that and start, this is a
Sure.
transitional thing is, should we start having a
Right.
second or somebody else?
How often do they meet?
Depends, in session, they meet a lot more. I would recommend Will there, and then if a commissioner wants to be on that one.
Okay. What if we did Will and like whoever the president of the board is as the backup person?
I'm good with that.
Would that be
Yeah,
okay?
that's fine. Right.
Okay, make that change.
Couple of others, I do go to the Builders Association. I think that's one we should participate in. So.
You
we
see,
should
like
find
as
that
more of a
somebody.
staff-oriented type of a position? Is
I
that-
think that's staff, but that's something that,
So it's your call then on that one, right? Is what you're saying? So as long as you let us know, unless the board has.
In some ways, those are almost, because I used to go to those when I was with the solar company, and in some ways that could almost be like an educational thing. I don't know if that's something that
Sometimes it is.
Jameson might be interested in that or something.
He does attend.
Okay, good. That's probably the right person.
He went last time. Last week.
to
he was on.
Carl's. Oh, he
Yeah.
went to the free lunch one.
Hmm.
Hey, Jameson, I'm calling you out. Turn your camera on, Jameson.
All right.
You go to the free lunch one and I go to the ones I have to sit there through?
Uh-oh,
He's no dummy.
uh-oh.
It was a great meeting.
All right. Anything else on this list?
Let me look real quick here, what else I may have noted down. Okay, so APPA. We're
Mhm.
gonna, we go to that, basically the fly-ins where most of APPA happens. They have other trainings and other things,
Right.
but that's the big one.
They have regional ones.
Yeah, and
too.
normally Kevin, I think you have to notify who your voting member is for that. And I think Kevin has been exercising that. I think I did once.
Yeah.
I guess is the board okay? Again, we'll be okay in February, but that's something looking forward, who's going to be our representative to vote at APPA, because they do vote on a lot of things that are
Yeah,
pertinent. to
there's
what we-
resolutions
Yeah, and
and-
so
Yeah.
that's one we should keep our eye on as to who's going to DC in
And
particular.
who can
And
participate in
who,
that?
yeah, so that's one we should make sure we keep up with who the voting member is.
Right. Okay.
So, and right now, Kevin, I think, has that. I don't know if we have to redetermine that every year before the meeting or not. I can't remember.
I don't know. I'll.
Seems
we'll have
like
to look into it.
they would be more amenable to who, as long as you're there and you're representing the organization or do you think
I
there's
don't think so. I think and I'm because I'm the voting member for the NRECA. If I'm not there, I have to
Designate.
designate.
And
Okay.
knowing that's that way as well. We've been reminded at knowing that we need to do it in writing and, give a lead time notice and that sort of thing. So again, I'm just calling that one to attention with Kevin's announcement that,
Okay.
these are things we need to start thinking about. And in the near term, we're okay, but it's something that we need to address maybe mid-year
Okay.
if we get into other things. Because of those, at that particular fly-in and that meeting, that, they vote on some very important things and sometimes it can be contentious and our vote could matter at some point. So Waputa usually is involved with that as well. So,
Okay. Anything else on this one? Are we good?
let me look real quick. I thought I had one more. And Kevin is our voting member at NRCA. Is that what you said? Okay. Yeah, I think that's everything I have.
All right. So I don't think we have to take action on this, but it seems like staff, once you've made the changes, you should forward this to us. No, I don't think you need to bring it back. Just email it to us.
Great.
Because we've given you the verbal direction on who is in what position. Are you okay with that, Joel?
Yeah,
We've directed staff to make the changes to the boards and commissions and just have them send it to us with the edited version.
yeah, I don't think this requires, formal
Okay.
resolution.
Okay, have we reached the end of our agenda?
No, I thought there was one more thing.
We have.
That's it. We
That's
did
it.
it. Okay.
Wow.
Good.
It is
Power pack.
5:03. We made it through 2 meetings in pretty dang efficient fashion, if I do say so myself. So 5:34 now, and this meeting is adjourned, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night.